Attention is in short supply these days, yet it is important to executive function, doing well in school, and overall life success. Hi, I'm Jeff Coleman, and this is Attention, ladies and gentlemen, a show for teachers and parents who want to learn more about attention and what we can do to help our children be more successful in school and life. So if I could have your attention, we will get started. Hey, before we get started today, I wanted to tell you about a fun way to train attention skills from our show's sponsor, Brainly. Where you look and where you are planning to look is where you are placing your attention. The Attention Arcade leverages this connection to train attention skills with specially designed video games that children control using only their eyes. You can learn more by going to attentionarcade.com. Welcome to Attention, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to do something a little different. I don't have a guest on. What I wanted to talk to you about was mindset and related to that meditation. When I had my guest on the last episode, Dr. Carolyn Langford, she talked about the mindset of teachers and educators, and it was a wonderful episode, and I highly recommend you listen to it if you didn't, but it really got me thinking more about it, and mindset's been really important to me, how changing my mindset has really changed how I approach life, and most importantly, how I parent and interact with others. And so I thought it might be a benefit to other parents and educators to talk a little bit more about mindset. And one of the key components of mindset is attention, hence why we're talking about it on Attention, ladies and gentlemen. So let me just share a little story that I think will help illustrate this. So I'm typically a pretty high anxiety kind of person, or I always had been. And I always worry about things. I get stressed about them when they come at me. And so a few years ago, I decided to start meditating. And what meditation really does, and we'll get into some more details, but it really helps you stay present in the moment, because our brains can just get out of control very quickly. And if we can stay present in the moment, we can really focus on what's important. And so let me just share an example when I knew that my mindset had changed dramatically in how I approach things. A little over a year ago, my wife and I were looking to buy a house in Boston. Actually, this is our house here, and we were living in San Diego. And I had made plans to fly out to from San Diego to Boston to inspect a house that we had put an offer in on. I actually hadn't seen it in person. My wife had seen it. I'd gotten a video tour, and I planned a 24-hour trip, which is always a little tight when you're flying. So this was about the time that people started traveling a lot more again. And the car rental companies did not have a lot of cars. So my flight was on time, and I was going to a friend's house to stay with them for the evening, have dinner with them, and stay with them for the evening, and was really looking forward to it. And, the flight's on time. I take the bus to the car rental location, and I get to the line, and there are about 8 people ahead of me and only one person waiting on them. And worse yet, I started paying attention to how long it was taking for this person working at the rental company to get each person into their car. It was taking over 10 minutes, or about 10 minutes maybe. And I did the math quickly, and it was clear that I was not going to get out of line for more than an hour. Not only did she have to fill in all the normal paperwork, she had to call down to make sure there was actually a car available. And it was just taking a lot longer, and clearly they were short-staffed. And so Jeff's old mindset would have worked himself into, just anxiety, increased heart rate, just gotten stressed, But I stood there and thought about what my options really were. I could, not take this rental, which I'd already paid for, and try one of the other car locations, which had shorter lines and they seemed to be moving faster, but not a lot faster. I could, try and get an Uber or a Lyft and get to our friends. But that meant I had no car for the next day, and I had a decent amount of driving to do and wanted to get back to the airport. So it really that wasn't a great option. And I thought about just standing in line. And what was what was I really giving up? I was going to miss dinner with our friends, and I did text them to let them know that I would not be there and go ahead and eat without me because it was getting late. And then I stood there and kind of just enjoyed the environment, did some breathing exercises, and just took it as an opportunity to practice. And that's what meditations are called, practices. They're never perfections. And to practice meditating. I did eventually get my car, and I made it to our friend's house, and they had saved me some dinner. And the rest of the trip went well. But rather than arriving at our friend's house in a state of high anxiety and frustration and everything, I just showed up as I was. I was, happy to see them. Did not want this to become, I certainly told them what happened, but we got back to catching up, and because we hadn't seen each other in person in a couple of years. And so I had a really nice visit with them and made it to the home inspection, which is another story. That's not the home we bought, but it really just showed me that your mindset really can impact how you feel, even when no situation changes. And that brings me to an exercise I did more than 15 years ago, but I still remember it because it really helped me down this path of recognizing what you think and what you focus on, where you place your attention, really impacts how you feel, even when the situation doesn't change. So if you'll humor me for a second, if you can close your eyes, if you're not driving, listening to this, and think about your morning routine. And I'm going to walk through a few things, might not be your exact routine, but it hopefully is, something you can relate to. So, see how this makes you feel. I have to get up in the morning. I have to go to work. I have to make my lunch. I have to get the children up. I have to, get the children on the bus. I have to show up for work on time. Did that make you feel relaxed? I'm guessing it brought about a little anxiety for you because of all the things you have to do. Now, try this a second time and tell me what might be different, or think about what might be different. I guess you can't actually tell me. I choose to get up in the morning. I choose to go to work. I choose to prepare lunches for my children. I choose to wake the children. I choose to get the children ready for school. Does that have a little different feel? I know when I went through that exercise the first time, I couldn't believe how different I felt when I chose to do all those things. And what we're doing is placing our attention on the fact that we are choosing, and we always have a choice. I mean, even if someone has a gun to your head, you still have a choice. Now, it might not be, ones that you, two choices that you really want to make, but it's still a choice. We choose what we do in life. And depending on what you focus on, whether you think life is a choice or whether it's happening to you without any choice, really changes your approach and how you feel about it. And this gets to some, a concept called confirmation bias. For for example, if you buy a new car, if you formerly owned a Honda CRX and you bought a new Acura RDX, all of a sudden you start to notice the Acura RDXs on the road. You think they're everywhere, where you never noticed them before. This is because our brains notice what we are thinking about, what we're aware of. So if you are constantly thinking, oh, my child can't do this right, my child makes a mess, my child, doesn't listen, we notice all of the times they make a mess, all of the times they don't listen, all of the times they make bad choices. If you start to focus on what your child does right, you'll be amazed at how many things they do the way you would like them to. For example, my youngest son tends to leave things sitting out. And that used to drive me a little crazy, to be quite honest. I would tell him to pick it up, and he was fairly young, and his nanny took care of a lot when he was really young, and so that might have spoiled him a bit anyhow. But, instead of focusing on what he leaves out, just the other day, I complimented him on what he had put away. He's old enough now, he was making his own smoothie, and he got all the frozen stuff back into the freezer, all the refrigerated stuff back into the refrigerator, and he had left one container that was non-perishable on the counter. Rather than getting annoyed that he'd left one thing out, I noticed that he had put away all the stuff that could have gone bad if he had left it out. And in the grand scheme of things, that's what I really want. I don't want him to ruin food. I don't want, puddles of stuff on the counter. I would like that stuff put away. So I complimented him on it. I noticed first, and then I said something to him when he next came through the kitchen. And that really, where we place our attention is what we notice. And as Dr. Carolyn Langford talked about in the last episode, if we can help children with what they are doing well, even children who have attention issues, we can start to make them notice it and become and want to please and want to do the things that will help them be better students and make their teachers and their parents happy, because children naturally want to please. And so I connected this to meditation, and I want to talk about that a little more. As parents and as educators, the mindset we bring really impacts, how we talk to our students or our children. And I started meditating, it was a little over 3 years ago. I have over 1,000 sessions in. I use an app called Headspace, which I really like, but there are others out there. They're certainly not the only one that does it well. And, I started doing it 10 minutes a day, and I started doing it semi-regularly and then regularly. And, I had a streak. I did miss a day recently, but I had a streak of over 2 years of practicing meditation, because I realized it was one of the first things I do every morning, and still is, and realized how big an impact it had on how I saw the day. And the concept of meditation is that we have a calm mind that gets clouded. They use the blue sky analogy on Headspace, where there's blue sky, it's open, it's all the space we need, but there are clouds. And when there are clouds, we let that block that blue sky. And the clouds are the anxiety and the things we're thinking about in the future, or the things we could have done different in the past. But all we really have is this moment. We can't change the past. We can't change the future because it's still the future. We only have right now. And if we can practice being present right now, then we have an opportunity to really see how not just what people are saying, but what they mean, and how our children or our students are, what's really going on with them. We can be present. We can ask them, how are you? And actually want to hear the answer, not what we expect, not what we want from them, but the real answer. How are you? And that can make a world of difference for a child or for a spouse or a friend or whoever. And we can just be present with them. I have my oldest son's 19. He actually just headed off to college this morning. He's flying down with his mom to school. And he is get a little choked up just talking about that. He is a loving, caring, wonderful young man. So proud of him. But as a young teenager, he really liked to push my buttons. He liked to see how Dad would react to things. And that is not uncommon. And I have to admit, I didn't always react the way I wanted to. The angriest I feel that I've ever been was when he did that one time. And, didn't do anything I regret. But other than I regret that I couldn't be more present, that I was letting my issues, my eldest son is a lot like me. And, I could see the things in him that bother me about myself that I would like to change. And I wasn't able to be present in that moment with him. And what really changed after meditating, and my wife even commented on it, was my capacity to hear what he was talking about, what he was saying, and to be present with him such that we have a great relationship. Does he do what I want all the time? Oh, no. As a matter of fact, the other day he was dressed in a way that I wanted to say something, but I realized it didn't matter. It really did not matter how he was dressed. Why? Because it's what's inside that matters. And when you can see that, when you can see what's inside, what's behind the facade that a lot of children feel they need to put on, you can really connect with them. And I have a story, a counter example, that still makes me sad when I talk about it. I have an aunt who, of my 11 aunts, she's probably my favorite, certainly one of my favorites. And I'm very close to her. And we were visiting a couple years ago. And when her son comes to visit, he doesn't stay with her. And she has not a big place, and he has a wife and daughter. He stays at the local hotel, which is, 5 minutes away. But he chooses not to stay with her, not because of the space, really. It's because my aunt, for all the wonderful things my cousin is, he's done very well professionally. He is a great dad, a good husband. She can't let certain things go. She brought up, while I was there, that he did not send out thank you notes for their wedding presents in a timely fashion, in her opinion. Now, Miss Manners says you have a year, because I actually looked this up. He sent them out 6 months, 7 months later, and she was aghast at this. And she still brings it up. This was 8 years after his wedding. As you can probably guess, he doesn't feel good about how she sees him. And all she can see is what he's doing wrong. And even though he does so much that's right in terms of his family and his mom, he still visits because he feels it's his obligation. This was actually at my uncle's funeral. He took care of so much for her. And yet she's still back on something that happened 8 years ago that, quite frankly, almost no one else even noticed at the time, and certainly isn't thinking about 8 years later, because she's focused on what he's not doing according to her expectations. When you do that, you really create a break with those you care about. And that's why it's so important to pay attention to where we place our focus, where our attention is. Is it better to be right and possibly not in community with someone, or is it better to be in community? And, right and wrong. Yes, there are certain things that are very clear and cut and dry, but in many cases, it's mainly our opinion. And what we really can get to if we bring a more positive mindset and can really help start to focus on being present and what matters now, is that we have a much better chance of being in community with our children, with our students, with those who we care about. And so I just want to, reiterate that for me, meditation was a big piece of this. It was recognizing it, as I mentioned, 15, 17 years ago. But meditation has really helped me get there. And I couldn't be more, I couldn't endorse it more, that you get something that allows you to improve your mindset and really be present with the children that you care about. And it will make a world of difference. So I hope you found this useful. It's a little strange, not having a guest to talk to, but I really wanted to share this with our community. And, where we place our attention is what we focus on. And so I really felt this was appropriate. Thanks so much for listening to Attention, Ladies and Gentlemen. Hope you enjoyed this episode and got something out of it, and will join us for our episode next week. Thank you. Thanks for giving me your attention for another show. We hope you learned something that you can apply right away. If you enjoyed the show, please rate us wherever you listen to your podcasts so that other people can more easily find the podcast. And remember to subscribe so you don't miss an episode.